Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk Tech with Tiff. In this episode, I sat down with Mike, who is the founder of Human Scaffold. We talked about all the difficult things when it comes to asking your boss for help, or maybe there's some team member that you don't get along with. He gave his advice and insight into how to make that more feasible. Also, too, I linked down below my newsletter, which is completely free, so you can go sign up today. All right, let's dive into it. Welcome to my new series called Talk Tech with Tiff, where I am sitting down with industry professionals to hear about their career journeys and current roles. I created this series to hear from people who are established in the tech industry so that we can all learn what these individuals do in their day-to-day jobs and the type of opportunities that are out there. Okay, let's get started. Hi, Mike. How are you today?
I'm good, Tiff. How are you?
I'm good. I am so
I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I was just going to say that.
Good.
I'm excited because I feel like we've been speaking about getting you on the podcast for a while now, and today the stars aligned, so I'm happy.
It couldn't be a better day. Nice outside. Yeah.
I agree. And also, too, we're going to, in a sec here, dive into more about yourself and Human Scaffold, but I think part of me is really excited to have you on because myself and Paul actually went through one of your, how would you call it, workshops or?
We do those behavioral assessments.
Yeah. So we got to go through that. And
did it make your relationship stronger?
It made us bond deeper, I feel. No, but really, it does tell you.
That's why he's like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it does. It tells you a lot about yourself, and then also to your partner, or most I know typically it's with colleagues, and it's just so important. So I'm really excited to dive into it today.
Yeah, excellent.
But before we do, so tell me a little bit about yourself. You have a really interesting career background, and what led you to really starting Human Scaffold?
Yeah, well, it started all back in the 90s.
Yeah, way back when.
Way back when. I started in pharma, in sales. I was one of those guys that carried a bag around and, you were waiting for an hour to see your doctor, and then I would walk in and see the doctor, and then you would give me dirty looks on the way out, right? So I did that for a number of years, and that's where I met Paul, actually. We were roommates. Another podcast. Maybe that's for the Paul and Tiff podcast.
That could be a whole episode.
Even more maybe. And then I decided at that point I was interested in training, but I didn't know if I wanted to go that path from a corporate standpoint. Actually, all the people that moved to that office got divorced.
They were just kind of like dry, or you said the worst?
They got divorced.
Oh, divorced. Yeah. I thought you said the worst. I was like, ooh.
They got divorced, which was the worst.
That is the worst.
Yeah. So I thought, my wife is a teacher, and I thought, maybe I would be interested in becoming a high school teacher. So I went back to school, became a high school teacher, went to teachers college, and I did that for 10 years. And during that time, it was pretty cool. I have a science background, so I did that. But then I got into all kinds of other things, co-op and math and geography and drama, which we can get to later. Yeah, I learned a lot from that experience. Yeah. And then a friend called me out of the blue and said, would you ever think of coming back to pharma? And I did. And so I came back to pharma. I went back to pharma. And at that time, I got into management. I wanted to try different things. So I was a product manager, got into marketing and sales manager. And then I had this really good idea just before the pandemic. Hey, I'll start my own business. Yeah. And it was really good for 2 months. In January 2020. Yeah. And then March it hit. And so that, of course, kind of, sent me on another trajectory where I did a lot more research and ended up to where I am now with Human Scaffold.
Wow. What was the business model before? You said 2 months and then COVID kind of hit. What was it initially?
The business model was like in-person workshops.
Okay, right? Yeah.
Like getting in. And at first I wasn't sure, whether I was going to do a lot more team building, because what got me into it was my whole life I just managed to get along with people, and then yet there was others that didn't get along with other people, yet they would connect with me and I would connect with the other person, but how come they didn't connect together? So I always was interested in that. And so as time went on, I knew I wanted to start my own business one day, and I wasn't sure what that would be. So then I thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to start a business and try to make that happen in the workplace and help people to be get along better, because I really believe that if that happens, then you can be more productive, more efficient, serve your clients or your customers or your patients or whomever it is better, right? So it really allowed me to research more. and then do virtual work, which I probably would have not thought was ideal for team building, but it turns out it is. So it's now, it was, I guess, no pain, no gain, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then now, even though, everything's quote unquote back to normal, it still feels like a lot of companies are virtual or have really embraced that. So are most of your workshops and coaching sessions, are they virtual still?
Yeah, I'd say half and half, but in the past year, what's happened is when people will connect with me, they'll say, hey, we really want to do something in person. Would you be willing to travel, or would you come to us, or what does that look like? So I find now that I use a bit of a hybrid. So I'll use videos ahead of time to try and introduce a concept so that when we do get together, it's all interactive. I create scenarios and this kind of stuff.
Fly
here, right?
I know. Yeah. Wanted to make an appearance.
Welcome. Yes.
But that's great. So it's kind of a hybrid right now.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that'll be like that moving forward, because I really believe that in a workshop, the more that we can actually be working together, working in groups. Like this morning, I spent the entire morning working on a retreat, a week-long retreat. Yeah. So it's pretty cool, because the person that I'm working with is really open-minded and wants to create like a psychological safety with their group and really make them feel comfortable to come together. So it's really fun. I guess that's my ideal client, someone that wants to push the needle forward rather than just, I guess my non-ideal client would be someone who's like, I'm not going to participate in the workshop. Just fix the team and I'll be back in an hour. Want a coffee? Yeah.
Just fix this. Here,
fix that. And I don't want to, if these people don't like me and I don't like them, but darn it, we're going to do a good job.
They're the ones who need fixing, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're speaking about what Human Scaffold does at a high level, but for those who are not as familiar with Human Scaffold, give us a little bit of background on what it is.
The name, Scaffold. When I was in teachers college, I had this big moment where I learned about this psychologist, a Russian psychologist named Lev Vygotsky, who came up with this idea of the zone of proximal development. I promise I won't go that much deep into there than this, but it kind of sets up to what I like to accomplish. It's that idea that you have someone who knows something, and then someone who, that same person may not know something else, right? So the zone of proximal development is that point where the individual is learning and pushing themselves to understand more, right? And so the teacher then plays the role of being a facilitator in trying to push them up towards it and being like almost like a scaffold to help push them up the ladder of knowledge, so to speak. So I thought, that'd be kind of cool, because that's my philosophy of how I think is a great way to learn. You create your own learning, and you have the person be there, the teacher, to help them along. So that's why I created the company and how we do it, right? So then, when I first got in, I was so interested to help as many companies and learn about as many companies as I could. I worked with university libraries and sales teams and in pharma, where my background is, education. But then I found the power of the niche. So I've kind of niched into medical a little bit, but I still have these other areas that I like to, because, and just on an aside, as an entrepreneur, and I'm not sure whether you found the same, but I kind of thought the niche was, you're just simplifying. But the niche is actually, what I've learned is that by me simplifying in what I do, it helps the other people to understand. So that's how the referrals can actually help better. So if I say, my name is Mike and I'm from Human Scaffold, and I want to help support physicians and their teams to better support patients, you're like, interesting. Hey, tell me more about that, rather than I just want to help everyone get along.
100%. And it's so, I don't know for you, but for me, when I had those thoughts a lot when I was first starting tiffintech as well. Like, am I getting too focused on a niche with tech? Like, it's going to reach no one except a very specific group of people who are interested in tech. And then what I found, and especially over the years, is by trying to reach everyone, you're reaching no one. It's like, what's that saying where it's, if you're pleasing everyone, you're pleasing no one. Is that the same kind of thing? And it's true. I think it's a scary thing to do, is to niche down at first, or nerve-wracking thing to do almost, because you're like, even for Human Scaffold, medical.
What else are you missing out on?
Yeah, exactly. You always think the grass is greener, but in reality, it's when they're in the medical field and they're thinking of team building and they're thinking of, bringing up everyone else, they're going to think, Mike.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. I have specific questions for you that I'm going to reference because, I usually try and keep these as organic as possible and whatnot, but a lot of the questions I wanted to ask you today, I want to make sure I ask them specifically because they're questions that I get asked a lot around how to speak to your boss or how to speak to your other teammates or conflicts. So I don't want to miss one. And then I'm like, I get asked this all the time. I missed this question. So the first one I wanted to ask you is around what are some strategies that can help someone handle conflicts or disagreements with other colleagues?
Okay. So we're going to back up.
Okay.
And maybe for the other questions, this would be helpful as well, right? So one thing I've learned is, here's the complicating factor, right? We all behave differently. We're all unique in our own way, right? So how can you find a way to define that so that when you see a behavior in someone, you might be able to find a way forward to make it work? So for instance, so I came up with this acronym, and it's called the 7 C's.
The 7 C's.
Yes, but actually the letter C, but it could also,
go the other way.
Exactly. We're sailing the 7 C's of communication. So if we were to take 4 different pillars or areas, so one is, so imagine you have conflict with someone. Let's consider the 7 C's, right? So number 1, are they by nature a confrontational person, meaning that they have no problem speaking their mind and providing their opinions, being maybe they're even a little competitive, right? Or are they the opposite? Are they more cautious, right? Want to please everyone, like you said before, right? Like, so confrontational, cautious.
Okay.
1. Okay. So in this case, we'll go back to the example after. I'll just get through the definitions. The second one, because there's 4 different ones, the second one is I just have 1 C, and that's communicative. Yeah, you have to make that face too.
Oh,
communicative?
Gosh. Communicative?
You have to do that. Because it's a question mark, right?
Yeah.
Quite communicative? So either, and this is where we're getting into the extroversion, introversion, right? Are they more a communicative person or are they someone that's a bit more introverted?
Yeah.
Right? So there's a question. So you can start to see where we're going now, right? So let's go to the next set of C's, pair of C's. Is the individual more calm as they approach things or do they like change? And when you think about change, then are they dynamic? Are they multitaskers? Do they not let the grass grow beneath their feet? Or a bit more empathetic, listener, let's not be too, not too hasty with things. And then the last set of C's is, are they more compliant? Rule follower, detail-oriented, even maybe perfectionist, or creative? Creative from the standpoint of being willing to work outside the box. Wade through ambiguity. So let's want to apply it to a scenario.
Let's do it
on the fly.
Let's do it.
So imagine you have a boss that's pretty demanding. Has no problem speaking their mind, and always wants to push for change, and doesn't necessarily want to go the way that things have been done. Let's think outside the box.
Creative.
Right? Yes.
Creative.
Yeah, very good. She's good.
I'm listening.
Sorry, I looked to the production team.
That's
over
okay.
Here. Yes.
We got an audience.
At least they're still with us.
Yeah.
And what if you had the opposite? So now you have someone that reports to that person who's more cautious, a bit more introverted, calm, and follows the rules. Right? So you have a conflict with your boss, and we could do it one of 2 ways. If the conflict is the boss is saying, how come, how come you're always just going so slow and you don't, you're not willing to think of new things and you don't like change and that type of thing. Or it could be the other way. What if the report is, I'm afraid I don't want to upset them. I don't want to say anything. And, that's not the way things should be done. I don't know what some other person, the business unit director told me this and the manager told me this. I don't know, Calgon, take me away, So then what my advice would be to that person, the report, would be think about your manager and how they want to hear feedback. direct.
Yes.
I would think they would want to have it direct.
Yes.
And they're not as introverted. Introverted people like to analyze things. People that are more extroverted are less interested in analyzing.
Yes.
On the whole, right?
Yeah.
We're making huge sweeping generalizations
Yes,
here.
yeah.
But the whole point
Typically.
of the 7 C's is this is a way forward and then see how it goes.
Yes. It's kind of like a roadmap almost, would you say? Or,
For sure. Yeah. So it's a roadmap. It sets the stage forward.
Yes.
And so, for instance, at Human Scaffold, I would have a video that would explain that.
Yeah.
And then in the workshop, we would actually break it right down. I meet with the manager, whomever is running, wants to have this workshop. Tell me more about your work and your scenario. Like, what scenarios can we make that are relevant to you? And then we put it to play. And then we have the scenario. We break into have breakouts and discuss it. Come up with tips. We write them down. I follow up with them about that, and then we do like a reflection, right?
Yes.
So it's if I consciously set ahead at the beginning is like, I'm not a PhD psychologist, and I'm not going to pretend to be, but. If you want someone to tell you what to do, I'm not your guy. Yeah. But if you want to have someone help work through, because I believe that everyone has the answers within the team or themselves, then let's do that, right?
I love that.
Because then it's more of an improv, which comes back to the drama.
To the drama.
Yes, because it's that whole idea of the yes and of improv and drama. Let's take the idea that you're presenting, and then let's add to it to make it better.
I love that.
And communicate back and forth.
Because I'm not a drama student, so for the yes and it's how did that work in drama? It was
so it's like based on improv. So if someone's going to come up and say, "Oh my goodness, the sky looks green today," you wouldn't say, "No, it doesn't. It's blue." No, you would say, "Yeah, it is blue. It is green." And you know what else? I just saw an elephant fly by. Oh. Yeah, I did too. Yeah, did they have feathers? Yes, they did. Like you're promoting the idea and building adding and building to it, right? So I can tell a quick story. When I was a sales manager, I used to apply this all the time, and I for instance, I fly into Montreal. The rep would pick me up at the airport, and they'd just like be bursting. Oh, I got this great idea, and it's going to be this, and And as they're telling me, I'm like, there's no way this is going to work, right? For a number of reasons, but I would say, you know what? I want to say no, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Let's talk it out.
Okay.
And I'm going to pretend with you, and we're just going to go on this journey and down the road, and let's see what that looks like. And then they would say, yeah, no, it's not going to work.
That's brilliant. So you're almost leading them to, because a lot of times people have these grandiose ideas or these great ideas that they're very excited about, and rather than just shutting it down, more so like, yes, and then you start asking questions to make them almost uncover that, oh, wait, maybe this isn't such a good idea after all.
Yeah. I think that's how people change.
Yeah.
That's, you have to go through, and it's hard as a teacher or a manager or whatever to see someone be at a point where they're super excited about something, but you think, well, like you kind of they need to live that.
Yes.
I don't want to take that away, right? Yeah. So a good way to coach them through it. So if you want to get to feedback or talk about feedback with someone along with the conflict, do it through questions. Why tell someone what to do when you can try and guide them through it by asking questions and get them to that point, right?
Wow, that's a great tip for someone like myself who is more so introverted and wants to grow in leadership, but doesn't like to necessarily just tell people what to do. So more so like structuring it in a way where it's asking questions kind of makes it feel more collaborative.
You can use this at home, Tiff.
Yeah.
You can say to Paul, just say, how do you feel about having dust on the shelving?
I like this.
Yeah.
I like this. Yeah, you can really
ask him. How does it make you feel?
How does this make you feel?
How do you think he'd like that?
Oh yeah, he'd be like, we got to get on this. We got to figure something out.
Could be revolutionary.
Here.
Yeah.
Literally. Wow. Yeah, I bet for so much of the workshops that you coach people or what word do you like to? Do you like the word that you coach people on or work with people on, or what's the best way to kind of?
Yeah, you know what? I don't really think about it. I have a couple of clients, like regular clients, and they call me their coach.
Yes.
And it kind of makes you cringe a little bit because I kind of think of like Mike Ditka, football kind of coach, when I think of coach. No, but I guess it's like that idea where you're like, I've dedicated myself now to doing research and understanding all these different things. So the value that I'm bringing are sharing what I've learned. Yeah. And it's like anything. There's so few original things left to discover so in that case it's almost like, well, here have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? No, I don't know anything about that. And so I read this book called Thinking Fast and Slow. Have you heard of the acronym WSIA? I can't even spell it. I'll just say it. What you see is all there is.
What you see is all there is.
Yeah. So you can help me. So it's almost like you don't know what you don't know. So if someone is explaining their understanding of something, and then outside of that understanding, then you can say, well, of course, that's all you know. So how do you introduce someone to a new idea? And that's hard because that's change, right? And so that's scaffolding. That's where you're going from that zone of proximal development, where you're introducing a new idea and helping them through it.
Wow, I love that. And I love, too, that you're very upfront with, I just think it's really refreshing that, there is not a lot of new ideas, and it's more so, it's rather than trying to recreate the wheel and, be this guru or whatever you want to call it. It's more so becoming an expert through learnings and really soaking up all this knowledge and then being able to communicate and convey that in different ways to different teams, really.
Yeah, because it's almost, I don't know, Tiff, on your end, what the equivalent would be, but imagine someone who's just immersing themselves and all they want to do is learn about communication. Then you go to that person and you ask 100%. Them things, and what would be the equivalent of that in your area of tech?
I mean, I think it would be anyone who focuses on specializing in a specific technology. So becomes obsessed with whether it be a programming language or specific tech as a like AI or machine learning, different things like that. I'm definitely more of a generalist. I like learning a little bit about a lot. And I think it's because it also too is how it's what's needed for Tiff and Tech. But I would say that's probably.
But if there was one thing that you wanted to, and this is maybe why you're having this podcast, you talk to people that have a specialization or an interest in that area. And then, I think I'm like you. I'm a generalist in this area. I like to learn so much about all these different things, and it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. I completely agree. One question I have for you is, and maybe it relates back to the 7 C's, is a lot of times I get questions around people who have difficult bosses or leadership, and they don't know how to speak to them, or let's go through a specific example. Let's go through the most awkward question of all time, which is asking for a raise or a promotion, for example. So how would you apply the 7 C's, or maybe it's a different method that you'd apply to speaking to your boss that you maybe don't have the best rapport with and asking for a promotion? Like what advice would you give to someone in that position?
So we'll leave the 7 C's just for a sec, because I think one area, and I mentioned psychological safety before, and I have to say a story that when I was in drama and I was teaching drama, I really realized the importance of having safety, right? For someone to get up, and imagine you're in grade 9, you don't know anyone, you're going to get up and you're going to deliver a monologue, or you're going to do something even more embarrassing. You need everyone in the room to be on your side and not snickering or making fun of you or whatever, 100%. Right? And so when what does it take to get there, right? Someone's going to say something, or I hear something under their breath. I can't let it go. Yeah. I'll see you in the hall, have the conversation and say, you can't do that. And if you do, then you can't come back. Yeah. And so then you create that safety, right? Because then it allows people to be vulnerable. And when people can be vulnerable, then that's when you start forming trust. Yes. And then in order to have all those things together, that's what allows open communication. So bringing it back, the arms are starting to wave, Tiff.
You're getting excited.
Yes.
I like it.
It's starting to talk about open communication.
Yeah.
So then, do you have that open communication with your boss?
Yeah.
If you don't, then, see, this is tough, right? Because if you just come out and start randomly saying,
I want a promotion.
I want a promotion. I want this.
Yeah.
And you're like, are they, it hasn't been formed, right? And a lot of times if the boss has created or allowed an environment to not flourish for open communication, then what do you do, right? So I'm going to take this in two ways. One, okay, so how could they have fixed that?
Okay.
From day one when you're hired, people talk about core values and the values of the company. And I think a lot of people just want to throw in all the words that sound really good, that make it sound like it's going to be an amazing place. Like, oh, there's such integrity and everyone's honest. And, well, yeah, of course. But what does that mean in the behaviors of people, right? So that should all tie to the job description. And it should be laid out right from the very beginning.
Yes.
This is exactly what's expected of you. And here are the values that we embody in your job. And so you can go back to the person at 2.99 months before, you're about to make the commitment to the individual and say, here's all the things we've looked for you, and we've reviewed this with you, and you've been accountable to it. Therefore, we're going to keep moving forward with you. And so if that manager would have done that with that individual, that the person's scared about asking for a raise, then probably they haven't done a really good job of setting up that background of safety, vulnerability, trust. And maybe they haven't really tied back the core values besides having them in the waiting room and never referring to them again, right? Now let's look at it from the perspective of the person who's nervous, right? I'd go to the 7 C's.
Yeah, then go to the 7 C's.
Is this a person? Let's make it hard, right? What if the boss is not a more competitive, direct communicator, and they're more cautious and they're more introverted and they're a little bit more calm and are compliant? So what do they want? They want information. Right? They're cautious in their decision making. They want to hear more information. They're analytical because they're introverts. So they if you're going to provide them a rationale, it better be well founded for it. And then if they're compliant, that high C, then, it has to follow the rules, right? It has to be within the what do they call that? Pay band, I guess?
Bands.
Yeah, the bands, like where you're at. So if you're going to ask for a huge raise that isn't going to be possible for a person who's a rule follower and they want information, it's going to be hard to ask that person. If it's the rule breaker who likes change, they'll be like, I don't see why not. Right? That person's probably going to be an easy one to have this conversation with because they're direct and because they don't necessarily play by the traditional rules, so they'd be willing to go to bat for you, right? Especially if you've done what has been expected of you. So for that person, I would absolutely recommend being prepared, having lots of rationale, and giving that person who wants the information for them, because they probably are a lot more reticent to do it themselves.
100%. It's so funny when that example made me think of my old boss when I worked at IBM, and I was kind of pushing for the.
Was he old?
Yeah, he.
Your former boss.
Former boss.
Yep.
Old boss. He was no. I mean, what does old even mean? I'm
kidding you. I've been working here for 70 years. Yeah.
No, but my former boss. He was much. He was exactly what. Oh, this fly. He was exactly.
He wants to be part of it.
He really does. I know. He was exactly what you just described. Very introverted. Very analytical. And to the point where, how did he say? He was like, he wanted me to lay everything out for him and document everything in a way that it would be presented to a jury.
Yeah.
So literally, like, show my case, basically, and absolutely document everything. And then I would say my current boss, because I went from a large company to now a more startup, is much more of the mindset of, like go, and actions speak louder than words almost, if that makes sense. So I would say it would be more so, you don't need to write, a 50-page PowerPoint, but more so, what have you actually done to, in a sentence or two kind of thing.
Imagine them reversed. So imagine the former boss who worked at a huge corporation, right? Coming into the more startup entrepreneurial environment, it would be a huge adjustment for them, right? Because they want to play within the box, within those rules, and they did a good job by hiring that person in that place because that's what it was, the right person for the right job, right? Yeah. Whereas that more entrepreneurial, I'm comfortable with ambiguity and not really sure. Well, of course, because look at the point of, you have to take chances in that situation in order to grow the business, right? Yeah, exactly. So it's good on you also for being able to manage through both. Right?
Yeah. I mean, some points of the 50-page PowerPoint was maybe a little painful, but we got there.
But again, that person probably doesn't feel comfortable taking chances, right?
Exactly.
Taking risks. So they want to have it all lined up so that they can say, here you go. It's all lined up.
Yes.
They go to their boss and they don't feel like they are putting their ass on the line.
Exactly.
Is that bad? We're going to get...
That's okay. We're good. But no, that's exactly it. And once I realized that and learned that, to what exactly you said, is they have a boss too, or they have, the board they have to report to as well for the startup kind of thing. And everyone has to report to someone. And although it sometimes can be like, oh, well, why can't you just do this? Or why can't you just, when you start thinking about their shoes and putting yourself in their position and what they have to report to, it really makes you more empathetic and understanding as to what they're dealing with, and realize that a lot of times it's not about you, meaning there's so much else going on too, which makes it easier, I find.
100%. And so in that environment where you have to provide all this information up front, like you're then modeling, encouraging that behavior in your employees. And that's why kind of things get slow and it's almost like quicksand, right? Yeah. So when you finally do find someone who is more competitive and communicative.
Yes. Yeah. The face.
More extroverted and likes change and wants to think outside the box, it can work for sure.
Yeah.
But what is it going to be like for that manager managing this person? If you're more traditional, conservative, and then you have someone who's going to push, you have to have someone like that in your team.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people don't.
Yeah.
And so this is where we then build in, this is another whole podcast about creating a team, building a team, right? All the different pieces of it and having a manager who's able and willing to hear from everyone and create the safety and create the trust and have the open communication, right?
Yes.
So Shangri-La.
Yeah. Wait, what does that mean?
Oh, just like living the dream.
Oh, I haven't heard that
one.
You
never heard that?
No.
Oh, okay.
It makes me think of Shangri-La Hotel, which is living the dream if you stay there. So.
Yeah, I think that's where it's come from, one or the other. Yeah. Oh,
I
cool.
like that, Shangri-La. Yeah. That's perfect. What was I going to ask you on that note? Oh, I was going to ask you. Okay, so I didn't have I'm kind of going sideways here.
Sure.
But throughout working with many different teams, both small, large, is there a common question or common challenge that teams face regardless of size or where they're at, or something that you seem to see that's pretty common?
It really is, I hate to be a cop-out on the answer, but it really just depends on the demand of the business, right? Yeah. If it's more sales, fast-paced, then you're going to get more of the competitive, extrovert, change, creative type of people, right? Yeah. And in sales, like I've seen these models where, have you ever had this where, like these I don't know a lot about this stuff, but like a Canva or a Calendly or those kind of upstart companies that are really doing cool stuff, when they go and they introduce, someone will come to you and they'll reach out to you by email, you respond, you call them, and then they say, perfect, we're going to book an appointment. Like, awesome, can't wait to meet you. And then someone else is there. You're like, oh, okay. And then they kind of walk you through the whole plan and everything. Okay, I think I'm going to sign up. Awesome. If you have any problems, let us know. Yeah. You have a problem, you let them know. It's not them. It's someone else, right? Yes. So who's the person that came to you right off the bat? That's the hunter. That's the more competitive extrovert who's coming in, bringing in the business, and then they hand it off to the next person who's more of an extrovert, but is also really good with the compliance, right? And following the rules, knowing what needs to be happening. And then the next person is more of, I think they call it the farmer or something like that. Like that is going to be managing the relationship, right? Wow. So they've really nailed it when those things happen. And when I've been through it, I even comment to them. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
The company, congratulate your manager. You've really nailed it because you have all the right people in the right position. And this is why the team is working out so well.
The different personalities that are needed for each role.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, going back to your question, it really depends on the needs, I think.
Yes.
So if you have those right people in the right spots, then the problems are going to be different. If you have a whole bunch of high pressure salespeople that are hunters all together in a room, they're all going to be really focused on sharing their opinion with each other and being very, not competitive, but, very confrontational with one another.
Yeah.
If the scenario's right and the core values are set and everyone knows their role and everyone sets the expectations of respectful candor at the front, no problem.
Yeah.
It's going to work. When those things are eroded or aren't happening at the beginning, then this is when the problems start.
This is when the problems start.
Expectations has so much to do with it.
Yeah.
If you get a bunch of people that are tech type people that just kind of work at their station and don't really interact with other people, then they're probably more cautious and probably more introverted and calm and like to follow the rules.
Yeah.
So there's probably going to be maybe some more passive aggressive behaviors. If they have a problem with someone else, they'll probably tell everyone else except for that person, like that kind of thing.
Yes,
right?
that makes sense.
So there are problems, but they're different.
Different problems for different kind of, because it goes back to the 7 C's, really.
The 7 C's.
Yeah.
Yeah. You float in the 7 C's.
Yeah.
And when the waters are calm, there's no problem.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
When it gets choppy, you got a bit of an issue.
You got a bit of an issue. I love that. I'm always going to remember the 7 C's now because it's so
good.
Yeah, it's so memorable, and you can I'm visualizing a lot of water and the whole thing. So it's
just repetition,
good.
right?
Yeah.
And let me say one thing importantly. With behavior, that's one slice of the puzzle. That's also an individual's genetic makeup and who their maturity and what their family life, where they were born in the flow of the different. If you're the youngest of 8 brothers and sisters, that has an effect on how. There's so many other parts. So we're just talking pure behaviors, but it's a start and it's a concept that you can use and build off of.
100%. And at the very least, or at the very minimum, it's a good way to boost your confidence in understanding that, okay, I know based on going through this checklist, I know to some degree how my boss likes to communicate or how I can, really convey what I'm trying to get across, which even just going through that, sometimes what you need is the confidence to start communicating more. And that helps with that too.
For sure. Quick story, was at Tim Hortons yesterday. I walked right in. My neighborhood, Tim Hortons. I walked in, got my coffee, boom. I was out in 2 seconds. And as I was waiting, 1.5 seconds before I got my coffee, I saw someone who's waiting in the pickup line.
Okay.
And they were looking around and were like, oh, is it okay? And then they went back and they went all the way to the back of the line. So they had a big thing. They had a big, long wait ahead of them, right? Mm-hmm. Because they didn't know the framework of how it works in a Tim Hortons. Yeah. Now they know, right? Yes. So now it's going to be that much more efficient, and then they just go through it unconsciously the next
100%.
time.
They'll always know, but it sometimes takes a little bit of growing pains to get there.
Yeah, so why not do that with communication?
It's so true.
Yeah.
Mike, I always end these conversations with the same question, which is, what is some advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh boy, how young?
How young do we want to go back?
A baby? Whisper in the crib?
If there's someone younger meaning maybe in high school or starting their career, and, what's some advice that you wish someone would have told you, or you learned too late? Not too late, but you wish you would have learned earlier. It's a hard question.
So when I was young, maybe before the age of 10, I was really, really shy.
Yeah.
And I didn't like people. I didn't like people coming over. I didn't want to talk to other people outside my family. I was very, very introverted, right? So I think I would probably tell me at that age, just keep doing what you're doing. Because
I love that.
You could very easily go and say, well, you shouldn't do that. Be more extroverted or whatever. Yeah. But, I think it's like I have no regrets in the path that I've taken. So I wouldn't want to unexperience something by giving myself that advice. I think that was a really crappy answer.
No,
Tiff.
I think it was really.
I think you were looking for something really profound.
No, I think that is really profound, actually, because it goes back to everything. Because there's, through life you go through so many ups and downs, and you feel like, oh, I should have done this, or why didn't I do that if I would have known? But at the end of the day, it makes you who you are. Which
and I think it's going to go full circle. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she said, like, oh, if I don't ever want to go to a long-term home. I said, I totally wouldn't. I'm going to hate people. I'm going full circle, man. Yeah. That's why I'm getting all this communication stuff out of the way now.
Get it out of the way now and then done with.
Yeah, I'm kidding, but
No, that's
kinda
great.
Not.
Kind of. Well, on that note, I mean, it's a great way to end the podcast on long-term care homes.
Yes, exactly. Where we're going.
No, Mike, it was great to have you here today.
Thank you.
And I'm going to link everything down in the description so people can come check you out and learn more about yourself and Human Scaffold.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tiff.
Thanks, Mike.